Hello. Hello. Welcome to Free2talk TV at this earlier time today, because I think there's something important happening today. Charlotte, is there something important happening today?
There might be something important.
There might be something important happening today. The football, obviously, England v Germany. It's going to be one of those games. When I saw Gareth Southgate doing an interview, I think it might have been from yesterday, because for those that don't know, Gareth Southgate that missed a penalty against Germany back in 1996. And I think it's a cool fact that the majority of the England team weren't even born when he missed that penalty. It was
like 17 or something.
It just made me really laugh how good that is. Right, so welcome to Free2talk TV. I'm joined by my normal faces, Owen, Richard and Charlotte. But we should have some special guests. Another special guest, the Mayor of Northampton, should be on later. I think she's just trying to set it up because she's joining from home. I am in contact with her partner in crime, well, her assistant, Lizzie. So yeah, we're here. We're going to talk about politics a little bit again. So we're going to be able to ask Jonathan, our special guest, who he is, where he comes from, what he does, and also deal with the mayor as well. But before we go on, how's everyone's week's been? Owen, how's your week been?
My week's not been too bad, actually. A little bit busy having to get my car sorted. I've literally just had a phone call from them. It was only a little bit of an exhaust covering, which just came loose. Just made my car very, very loud and rattly. So I've got that sorted. And 28 quid out of my pocket. So never mind.
28 quid. Wow.
Considering a lot of the other things that I've had to pay for my car to be fixed off. 28 quid.
Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah, it's like giving 30 quid to the guy and keep the change. That's how it works, isn't it? Jonathan, so you've kindly come on. I think my happy thing this week really is you coming on whilst you're away. So how's your week been?
Well, that's how my week's going, actually. So I'm away for 3 days, and I'm on day 2 of my 3 days away. So I'm just kicking back and down on the south coast, getting it a bit. I was going to say a bit of sunshine, but to be honest, that would be telling untruths. It's pretty blustery and pretty damp. But the best thing is just being away for a few days. To be perfect. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on whilst you're
no problem
a mini break. Really good. Charlotte, how's your week been?
Yeah, not too bad. Had a bit of time off at the weekend, so some chilling stuff. Yeah, it's been nice.
I mean, have you been checking your emails, Charlotte?
Yeah, my emails have been broken still.
So I was about to say, you've missed something from me. That's what I was going to say. How's your week been? Like, Charlotte.
I love it now. Yeah,
right, I'm just
completely
teasing.
Messed up.
Oh, no.
Disaster.
Well, that'll be why it's been a bit of a disaster.
Yes.
Richard, how's your week been?
Having a little bit of disaster. My internet's playing up.
Oh no, Richard and his internet. It's all that gaming we did last night, Richard, on Twitch, isn't it? Basically, it's all your internet. Oh, he's going to try and sort it out. Right, so we'll move on a little bit. So I'm still waiting. We've got AO joining us a bit later on his way back from work. Still waiting on the mayor to come on and join us. But Owen, over to you for the devilish questioning of a councillor about politics.
Great.
But before Owen goes in, Jonathan, what's your name? Where'd you come from? What do you do? Brief overview.
So my name's Jonathan Harris. I'm an elected Liberal Democrat councillor on the West Northamptonshire Council, which is the new council for Northamptonshire. Some of you may know the history. We may talk about that a little bit, but the county split into 2, and I'm sure we will talk about the reasons behind that. That's some juicy information around that, I'm sure. But now we are basically split into 2 areas, West Northamptonshire, North Northamptonshire. So I'm one of the 93 councillors in the West Northants area. And that isn't my day job, though, actually. Most people are either working full-time or they are retirees, so it's quite an eclectic mix of individuals. So I still work for my living, and I actually run a training and development business, a leadership development business. So that's my day job. Work with lots of different corporate clients, UK based and international. Not so much international, funnily enough, for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
It's been pretty much obviously online pretty much for the last 18 months too. So that's me really. I've lived in Brixworth, just north of Northampton, about 6 or 7 miles north, for the last 22 years. That's me.
Working. Amazing. Over to you, Owen.
All right. So obviously I don't know much about politics, neither does my friend Richard either. So I'm just going to go up and state, because of the new council system now, your responsibilities have slightly changed, because I know that East Northamptonshire Council, or was it North Northamptonshire Council? I'm not sure. North. Yeah, no. So I know that North has a little bit of a different system to West. So what is your sort of responsibilities now compared to what it was before?
Okay, so I guess the easiest way to describe it is the old system versus the new system. So the old system of council had what was described as a 3-tier system, which was historically fairly typical for the UK, actually, pretty much in Wales and in Scotland, as well as in England. So in essence, the 3-tier system meant that you have a county council, which operates across county, oversees all of the major services that exist in a county council, which I'll talk about in a second in a bit more detail. Then the second tier of council was what was called a district council. And a district council, in our sense, in my area, I used to represent, for instance, the Daventry Council. So I was elected to the Daventry District Council. And then you have what's called parish councils or town councils. So that's the traditional 3-tier system that you have. Now, we in Northamptonshire now are split into 2. It's called a unitary council. Don't need to get too hung up on that, but that's the official title. It's a unitary council. We're split right down the middle. North Northants being one, which covers the sort of Kettering, Wellingborough, and the old East Northants area, the Thrapston area, that type of thing. And then West Northamptonshire, which covers the old Daventry Council, South Northamptonshire Council, which operated out of Towcester, Northampton Borough, effectively the old town council. Okay. Now, the main thing is it's 2-tier now instead of 3-tier. So effectively, we still have parish councils. We still have town councils. Daventry has a town council. Northampton has a town council. But there's nothing in the middle. So no district council anymore. It feeds now straight into the West Northamptonshire Unitary Council. And that effectively means that basically all of the services that are provided by the council pretty much are now operated out of that one solo council stream.
Right. Okay.
Cool. Cool. Do you know what? I feel so much better about politics having all these councillors on explaining it.
Me too.
I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, see, I would have gotten nervous to answer questions like this, but I just come up with a question straight up the bat.
It's good. Right, have you got anything else to ask now, Owen?
So now we don't have anything in between. Like, there's no district council now. How does that work with like council? Like the county or the town councils, how does that split between? Because I'm guessing they've got little small bits that have to implement somewhere, but they haven't got their own little tier now.
Yeah, they have. That's right. So it's interesting actually, because Northampton Town Council is the largest town council in England now. I think there's something like 14 or 15 elected representatives. So I think it's pretty much the largest town council that exists. In essence, I guess for a town like Northampton, it's not a small town. They have a bit of a wider remit and responsibility in the things that they can do. And obviously, they'll be very interested in things like town regeneration, particularly. But they will no doubt need to be working with the West Northants Unitary Council. That's where a lot of the funding will come from. I should probably explain that the council, West Northants, is responsible for an absolute myriad of services that will impact everybody day in, day out, and probably little known really. So things like refuse and rubbish collections, the recycling centres that exist. I think there are 5 of them through in the West Northants area. Things like adult services, things like children's services, although now that's operated as a trust. So it's a separate entity that crosses both north and west. So it's slightly different, but nonetheless, it provides those services. But pretty much anything you can think of, public health, environmental services, planning, you name it, there's a whole list, and it goes on and on. But effectively, everything that probably impacts most people in the West Northamptonshire day in, day out, somebody somewhere will be doing something to make a decision on it, or implementing actions around stuff that will affect us. Even things like the scooters in Northants, for instance. I know that's a very controversial one. Some people love them, some people hate them. But that's an example of a decision that was made at council level, for instance.
Ah, right. Okay. Right. Yeah.
Any other questions, Owen? Or Richard or Charlotte want to jump in?
I'm just going to say, I think my internet's fine now. Just all of you are frozen, but I can
all
hear
of us
you
are
guys.
frozen, but you can hear us. Okay.
Okay.
So I don't know how this is going to work out at all for me.
If you can still hear us, that's fine, because we're moving around fine. This, in some ways, I can't wait to actually try and get some money to build a proper studio for this kind of stuff.
Have like a full-on podcast room.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea. Yeah, well, I just want to ask this question then, Jonathan. So we've had Adam Brown for the Conservatives on. We've had James Hill on for Labour. And obviously, you're now Lib Dem. I mean, I haven't had the Green representatives, because there isn't a Green one for West Northampton. It's North Northampton.
No elected Green councillors in the West.
Yeah. So, but I mean, so I think to young people, I mean, like Richard Owen and Charlotte and other young people I've had on, you know, they just don't see the difference really between what the party is. So, do you think you could explain a bit of the difference? What makes you different from the others?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, actually, because I think that's a valid point. It probably often people can't necessarily see the difference on the ground day in, day out. I mean, it might be worth just talking about the role of the councillor, perhaps, because that might help clarify it a little bit. So as a councillor, I represent a ward. So we're broken into 31 wards in West Northamptonshire, and each ward has got 3 elected representatives. That's how we end up with our 93 councillors. Mm-hmm. And in some wards, they are entirely one party political colour. So there are wards in West Northamptonshire that have 3 representatives that are Conservatives. There are some wards that have 3 representatives that are Labour. And then there are some wards that have one of each. And there's my ward where there are 2 Conservative councillors and me as a Lib Dem councillor.
Do you feel bullied?
No, I can hold my own, James.
That's
good.
I can hold my own. So I think the difference is you have to always rewind, I think, and look at the constitutions and the historical bases of these political parties as to why they exist and what they exist for. The Liberal Democrats really are very much about fairness and equality, pretty much. Across the piece, so regardless of sexual orientation, race, background, experience, any of those sorts of things, and that's the bit that appealed to me as an individual. It's not about discrimination in any sense of the word, and neither the other 2 will tell you they're the same in that sense too. But you have differences of constitution. So the Labour Party historically have got funding coming in from unions, for instance. So they're historically very affiliated to the trade union movement in the past, and that's been a large funding stream for them. And Conservative Party, if you go back many moons, was always historically linked to landowners and the gentry and the more well-to-do. That has changed somewhat, because that would have to have changed. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the support that they have now, one would argue. But there is still quite a legacy of those who are more affluent and perhaps with more money tend to gravitate towards the Conservative Party because they tend to favour lower taxes and so on and so forth. Whereas the Lib Dems probably fall right in the middle. We're probably the most centrist party that exists now. And when I say centrist, people on here might hear the term right wing and left wing, Over the last 5 years, that's been used more and more since Brexit. And Labour historically has been more left-wing orientated, which means more socialist in their foundation. And then right-wing tends to be more individualist in its orientation, so much more about what's in it for me, one might argue. If there was a conservative here, one of my conservative colleagues, they would argue till the cows come home that that's not the case. But the Lib Dems probably sit somewhere in the middle. So we believe in the notion of free economic market and businesses being able to trade without too much regulation. But we also believe in taxing people appropriately in order to put money back into the state, basically, to pay for all of the things that we've benefited over the last 15 months, like the NHS, for instance. And, there is a reality that a lot of our social services are underfunded, it would be argued.
I would say there's tons of evidence for that. Personally,
I'm trying to be diplomatic, James. It goes for the territory.
Well, luckily I don't have to be diplomatic that much. So I mean, criminally underfunded, I would argue. But I mean, that's great. You've explained that. But I mean, I think for Owen and Charlotte, I just want to bring you on this. Do you recognise the difference between these parties? As you are, Charlotte, you first.
Vaguely. I mean, I know that there's small differences between sort of the main parties, but I think because I haven't sort of been educated in it within schools and things like that, I don't know the main differences, and that's why I find it hard when it comes to voting and things like that, because I don't really know, apart from just a brief little description about what the actual difference is and what's in it for me if I vote for that party. So yeah, I find it quite difficult to know what the real differences are.
Yeah,
really fair point, Charlotte, and I think that that's one of the challenges that exists, is that from an education point of view, it's not really something that is on the curriculum too much, and it's not really something that young people get the opportunity to engage with at that level. And I think there's a reason for that, probably because whoever is the ruling party at the time are responsible for setting curriculums, and there's always this sensitive area of, that might be a bit political to have those sorts of conversations. But that's a good example of the Lib Dems believing in the power of free speech and free thinking. And our view would be that it should be on the curriculum. You should have the opportunity to talk about politics more. You should have the opportunity for people like me and others to come in and to give them a good dressing down and find out more about what they stand for and what they believe in. But that's the reality of where we are, unfortunately, and the onus therefore does sit largely with young people to go and find out. It sits with political parties like my own. We're trying constantly to get young people involved. The Liberal Democrats have got a very strong young Liberal group, actually, who are very active. There's a young Conservative group, and I suspect there's a young Labour group as well. But it usually engages people who are already interested in it, to be honest, and that isn't good enough. We have to do far more to get people interested in it, to understand that politics affects your life day in, day out. It's not just these people sitting in a big old timber panelled room. Funny that I'm sitting in one. It's not people sitting in this old room in London arguing and shouting at each other. They affect your lives. They run your lives, arguably.
Yeah.
Hold on, I've seen Prime Minister's Question Time. It does seem to be lots of people just shouting at each other. That's how it works. I mean, going back to like some of the stuff you talk about, especially like young representation. I mean, and in schools. I mean, because there is that argument that we shouldn't teach politics in schools because we don't want to politicize the youth. But I mean, also for my part, I mean, I've had this conversation where obviously I think everyone knows I'm a bit of a loony lefty, don't we, guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't beat about the bush with it. But it's also like how you can be tarred with that, and just because you're seen as extreme. I mean, I'm in nowhere near extreme, to be honest, but that say area of what actually is extreme or not is got bigger. So do you find it really difficult, because you're meant to be the centrist party, to kind of go, oh well?
Getting hurt is quite difficult when I think my views are fairly moderate in pretty much most things, so therefore, if you rely on social media, which a lot of politicians do, I tweet and I use Facebook, not particularly because I really want to, but because you have to sort of get your thoughts and your views out there. But part of the problem is that it's the stuff that's the extreme that gets retweeted and gets noticed. You know, the stuff that's what I would describe as more moderate and more sensible, more mid-ground, is sort of like, yeah, well, it's a bit wallpaper perhaps for people. You know, and that's definitely one of the challenges for the Lib Dems. But you may have seen that there was the by-election fairly recently in Cheshire and Amersham a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
You know, that was a resounding success for the Liberal Democrats, you know, coming from what was a 16,000 seat majority, you know, 16,000 votes ahead for the Conservatives, being Conservative forever and a day. I think the constituency was created in 1974. And, you know, it's now got a Liberal Democrat MP representing it with an 8,000 majority. So we can be heard, we can get our message through, but we don't really get a lot of airtime on mainstream news programs.
That's because you're not sensationalist enough, are you?
I think that's a really good point. And you know, the dreaded B word's got to come into this. You know, I think since the Brexit thing, that polarization has just got bigger. It's just got much harder to be heard in that middle ground. You know, if you go back, nobody here will remember the Blair years, apart from you, James. Sure you will. But other than that, Charlotte and Owen might just barely remember who that person was. But, you know, they came to power on a fairly middle ground, moderate manifesto, actually, and you know, they won 3 grand elections on that fairly moderate mid-ground election, and it's true to say that the Brexit debate has really polarized issues. You know, and again, as a Liberal Democrat, I'm completely pro-European. You know, speaking candidly, I'm still yet to see the bonanza bonus of anything from the decision that's been made. You know, and I feel very sorry for young people. You know, we've lived in an era where we've been able to travel freely without any issues, and actually not just travel, but set up homes wherever you want. If you want to hang out somewhere for a while, you stay there. All of that now is gone, you know, and that to me is really criminal for young people. And I think it's another example where moderation didn't factor, ideology played out loud, and not moderation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think like because the polarization, and I feel like there's being put into this extremist idea of left or right. If like for me, when I suggest that Amazon pay their taxes, I'm a loony lefty, you know.
Well, I'm with you on that, so I'm a loony lefty as well then, so,
Oh, damn it! But you know, I've had these conversations with, like, you know, people, friends of mine on social media or whatever, and usually we can avoid that polarization. But there's always, hello again, Richard, he's back, yay! But there are always those situations where, say, someone on the right will say, well, no, let's not give nurses a 1% pay rise because, you know, we're still in austerity, and there's those on the left will go, well, I want Amazon to pay their taxes, and they're considered extreme views, which I think is really difficult for a lot of young people to navigate. So Owen, I'm going to bring you on to this because I want to ask you a little question.
Okay.
So do you see a lot of stuff on your social media platforms? I mean, obviously you're not on Twitter, because just to let you know, Jonathan, on this channel we don't like Twitter.
Okay, that's
particularly because of
Richard, because Richard hates it. Richard hates it.
Because of the
I say I use it, but I don't really like using it.
Yeah, that's fine.
that's okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I suppose this goes to all 3 of the young people. I mean, how much what would be classed as extreme, left or right, do you actually see in your social bubbles, do you think?
What do you mean on social media, or just out?
Yeah, just social media. Yeah.
I think it depends on what you follow. Like, I don't really follow many politics pages or anything on social media. But I think if you were really invested in it and you sort of liked learning about it, I think you definitely see more sort of intense views and more far right or far left views. But I think for me personally, I think it depends on your age as well. But I sort of tend to avoid that if I can.
Charlotte just follows nice things on social media.
Nice things, like animal things.
A bit like me and all the cat videos. Because I still am of the opinion that Facebook was originally invented to share cat videos, and I stand by
That's
it.
YouTube.
And YouTube, both.
Yeah.
What about you, Owen? What about you?
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't particularly follow any like political parties or any like sort of news reports on social media. I keep that to myself. My social media feed is usually block games and playing with plastic bricks. But I do
Two great things.
Yeah, two great things. But technically speaking, a lot of my friends are quite political, and they like to share their political views or share other pages of political events. So I do have some sort of awareness of it, but I don't personally invest into it.
So are those pages they share, would you consider them extreme views from what they share, or more moderate, like Jonathan is representing and feeling a bit left out from not being shared on these pages?
No, some of them are actually kind of neutral in political views. Some of them are about their personal views with a little comment next to it, or maybe they're just sharing the actual page from what they just saw on like a newsreel or something. So a lot of the time it's usually neutral stuff that I see. I just see just random like bits of politics here and there. It's nothing. There's only been like maybe 2 times in the cross of the past 18 months that I've seen a lot of other people that I follow all have the same shared like political view.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, it's only like one or two or three times the past few months. But most of the time, it's literally just neutral stuff. Just like little announcements here and there, just to get people aware of certain things, to get people thinking about it. So, and it's not just one particular political party; it's all of them. I've seen a Green Party one once or twice from someone. So. That's what I see.
I mean, I'd also argue that a lot of the Green Party ones are on par with some of the Lib Dem stuff, because, like, you know, it's not really that sensational. They kind of go, "We want to save the planet," and everyone goes, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah,
it's not sensational enough to be on a lot of news. Richard, to finish on you then with what you see, because we've had this conversation about why you're off Twitter, right? And I think looking back at it, a lot of the reasons why you came off Twitter was because of that extreme stuff that was on there, wasn't it?
Mostly just everyone cancelling each other and just
being
idiots.
That idea of cancel culture. I mean, do you see any? I mean, because you're we're youngest here. Do you see much on your kind of other social media or for your friends and stuff about anything to do with politics and extremism? No.
The only thing about politics that I get mostly is the COVID updates with Boris. That's literally the only one. Then nothing else.
Nothing else apart from having political experts come on Free2talk TV, eh, Richard?
That's interesting that you describe that, Richard, because of course the Boris COVID announcement should be apolitical, because that's your government informing you. There shouldn't be any politics in it at all. But but some of you might have noticed that it does have politics in there occasionally.
A little bit. I mean that's also. I mean, because we'll go back to the past again, Jonathan. So, I mean, when I was at university and you had the Blair years, I mean, arguably you could say like Labour came more into centre and Lib Dems went a bit the other way in that time.
True.
But with this moving around, do you think there's more crossover in politics now than there was perhaps before, like between left, right, and centre?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, if you take the West Northampton elections, for instance, so the average turnout for the election was under 30%, which means 70% didn't bother, not engaged, not interested, or just, you know, they weren't motivated to be involved in voting for anybody. You know, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable for any political party, in my view, to say, well, thanks very much, guys. We've got, you know, in our case, it's a Conservative administration that runs West Northampton Council by some considerable margin. But I would still argue it's not acceptable to say, well, we won because there are more of us, on the basis of less than 30% people voting at all, let alone for the Conservatives. So, but that can't be laid at the foot of just the Conservatives. That's got to be laid at the door of all political parties, because we need to do a better job of engaging people. Yeah. In my ward, I'm chuffed to say we got 46% engagement.
That's huge in comparison to all the rest. That's massive.
Yeah.
Well. I'm just going to say well done. Sorry, because I actually downloaded. Got all the data because I wanted to look at the data of it and extrapolate on what percentage of each ward wasn't voted. But to get 46%, that's huge, actually.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
The reason for that is because we put a lot of shoe leather in. We actually went out and engaged with the electorate. We knocked on every door that we could find. We couldn't quite get to every door because of the COVID restrictions, but that's what it takes, and again, it's a fact that in some wards in West Northamptonshire, nobody had their door knocked on at all by anybody. So it's not surprising that they're not really engaged, because nobody goes and talks to them, and I think that's the other issue that is difficult these days from a political point of view, because most people are generally pretty open to a good conversation about stuff, but you also meet people that as soon as they see your colour of your badge, they will not even entertain a conversation with you.
Yes.
So,
sorry, just to interrupt, Jonathan. Hello, Ao. Welcome on. He's rushed back from work. Bless him. How you doing, Ao?
Hello. I'm really good. Good to be here again.
Excellent. Right. Sorry to interrupt, Jonathan. I just wanted to do the welcome.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's important that you say just because of the colour of their badge. I mean, I've been guilty of that. Where I used to live in Semilong, I mean, I had British National Party stuff come through, and I went, you can take that back in not very nice words at the time, but also I think there's I said about Adam Stone who came on. Adam Brown, sorry, Adam Stone, someone else I emailed earlier. I've known Adam for years as well. But when he was like doing the shoe leather stuff and asking for people to vote, he kind of went to me. My girlfriend went, I won't bother asking you. Because he kind of knows our political stance. But so I think there's a lot of that. But do you find that more difficult being in the middle than if you think you represent some of your colleagues representing the red or blue?
I think the reality is we always suffer generally from being the third party. In politics, I was going to say hysterically. I mean historically. In politics, historically, we've always been the third party. That's the reality of it. The pet thing that the Lib Dems stand for and believe in, which also so do the Green Party by and large, and increasingly so does the Labour Party, but not quite at the constitutional level yet, is the notion of proportional representation, which has been kicking around for years. So I first got interested in politics back in the 1980s. Now, 1980s guys, that sounds like some of the music still lingers. You might hear the odd song from the 1980s, but people did live in those days. And I got engaged in politics actually because of the arrival of a political group called the SDP, the Social Democratic Party. And for those of you that don't know, that was a breakaway group from the Labour Party in the late 1970s, early 1980s. And that happened because in those days, the Labour Party was run by a gentleman called Michael Foot, who had some fairly clear left-wing views, I would say, certainly for the majority of where most people sat in conservative Britain with a small c. And this gang of four decided that they wanted to do something different and broke away and formed the Social Democratic Party, which is actually modelled quite a lot on many of the social democratic parties in Europe, actually, which is much more, it's centrist, but it has socialist tendencies. So it believes in support.
Just to jump in, Jonathan, like I think I've spoken to Owen and Richard maybe about this before. What you find is in the kind of right and left line is generally where our centre is considered a bit more right wing in Europe. I think I might have said that before. So sorry, Jonathan, just to carry on.
That's a very good point. And that's how I got interested. I grew up in a household that was Labour through and through, and my dad not alive anymore, but my dad, I remembered calling anybody that left to join the SDP a traitor. How dare they join? And so that's deep rooted, but it was a mining community historically many years ago, and therefore strong allegiances to trade unionism and what the Labour Party stood for. So I grew up in that, and I guess there was a rebellious streak in me probably that thought, well, I don't want to follow your politics. If your politics is that, I'm going to do something else. I could not bring myself to be supporting Margaret Thatcher for many reasons. So I found my home with the SDP, and I probably was more affiliated to the SDP probably than the Liberals in those days. And then they merged in the late 1980s and became one group, and they now have a good blend of liberal policies and social democratic policies, realistically. But that's my DNA. So it is more socialist, I guess, in many ways. It's definitely more socialist than it is conservative. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, also we say socialist. I mean, I think for a lot of people, when you say socialist, it's seen as the enemy, which I think it's a big difficulty for me. It's like, because you wouldn't have schools without socialism, you wouldn't have the NHS without socialism. Me as a youth worker, because I kind of started wanting to hold my political kind of leanings a bit more on my breast and go, well, without kind of socialism and being a bit more left, I wouldn't be here doing this. So I think it's a good thing to talk about. But you mentioned proportional representation. I wonder if you could explain that for everybody here and what that actually means.
Yeah, thanks for that, James. Trying to explain proportional representation in the
you're an expert. That's why we get you on to ask the big questions.
Right. Well, I won't talk about the systems because there are many different versions of the truth, and they've all got pros and cons and ups and downs. But the essence of the notion of proportional representation, I think, is the key thing to understand. And that is basically that we would lose what's called the first past the post electoral system. And that very simply means that I'll give you an example from my ward. Okay, so in our election, there were 3 Conservative candidates, 3 Liberal Democrat candidates, and 1 Labour candidate. The 2 Conservatives that won and myself, we were pretty much level pegging in our votes, a couple of hundred difference between them. My next colleague, who stood as a Liberal Democrat, was a couple of hundred behind. Those votes are ignored in a first past the post system. They're just literally thrown away and discarded. And that I'd been a councillor before, so I had a reputation. I was known in the community, so I had an advantage in the sense that people knew my name. My closest running Liberal Democrat candidate happened to be my wife, actually. She'd not been stood as a candidate before, and got 1,600 votes. There are councillors that were elected in other wards with 900 votes or 800 votes or 700 votes.
There were.
That's
all the data.
Much lower turnouts than 30% in some wards. 20 or 19% in some wards. So the notion of those, people always talk about voting Lib Dem is a wasted vote because you're not going to win. Well, we've proved in our little bubble that isn't the case. We can win. We won a by-election in 2019 and we won again in May this year. And it's been solidly Conservative for years and years and years. So it proves it can be done. But under a proportional representation system, all of those votes would be combined. And then a process would be applied to actually balance the makeup and representation according to the votes. Now, whether that would have changed anything in my ward can't be clear, but it may well have meant that there may have been 2 Lib Dems and not just one, potentially. But the important factor is on a national level. The Lib Dems now are second in something like 80 constituencies, largely in the south of the country, by and large, and largely second to Conservative sitting MPs. And in some cases, it's like marginally behind, a few hundred votes in some cases, or a couple of thousand. And it's very disenfranchising, I think, as an elector, to work hard and support the policy that you support, for those votes simply just to go, sorry, I know you've got 25,000 votes, but you know they got 26,000 votes, so they're it, and therefore that's how the makeup of the government is made. So
yeah, I mean, I almost feel like, because I want to get everyone's opinion on what they think of proportional representation. Now you've just said it, because I do feel like the current system is a bit like me, and we'll pick me and you, Jonathan. So all 6 of us have got a certain amount of votes, but me and Jonathan get the most. So bye, guys. Your opinion does not matter. Look at Ayo's face. Ayo, I'm sorry. I don't mean it really. Ayo, you muted yourself. I can't hear you laugh.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So now, right, guys, now you've heard what proportional representation means. I mean, I must also add, I feel like the current system stops new people getting into politics as well.
Completely.
So it's very more difficult for young people to engage and whatever. But what do you guys think proportional representation would be a good idea? Charlotte, you first.
I was going to say, I agree with what you said about it'd probably be harder for new people to get in, purely because, you know, if it's done on the most votes, you're going to get people like maybe the older generations to vote for who they think to get in and things like that. And if people aren't educated enough, it's quite hard for especially young people to sort of be involved and have their vote sort of count. At the same time, you know, I think there needs to be a way to set out a clear winner. So I mean, and it does do that, but at the same time, you know, it's probably not the most fair way, but I don't know what other way you would do it.
Charlotte, just worth saying, PR, the difference with PR is it sets out clear winners rather than a winner. So it just means that it's very clear who gets elected, but it's more balanced. That's the point behind it.
Yeah. So I think there's pros and cons to it. Yeah.
Wicked. Well, Richard just disappeared for a second. So Owen, what do you reckon?
See, I go by the system that we're voting for who we want us to represent. So more people voting for the person that they prefer in what they believe is what's right is more freely of that's the person we want to represent, so we're going to vote for them. Understandably, I do see the point of like not many new electees don't get in because they're literally just new and everyone re-votes for the same person again and again. So I do see that, but I just believe in the fact that if you're going to vote for someone that wants to represent you, you're going to represent for someone that has done good in the past and you know you can trust with them. So
no, I think that's a fair point, Owen. And you know, in my case, in the West Northampton election, I definitely, ironically, the 3 people that were elected in my ward were all existing councillors. I was the newest of those. I'd only been a councillor for 18 months. But my other 2 colleagues in my ward have been councillors for 12 years and I think something like 8 years. Controversially, my view is politicians should not be able to stand for more than 2 terms, actually. And I intend to fully stand by that view. You know, I personally think that's the only way in our current system you're going to allow new blood to come in, is to actually stand aside and let people have a go themselves. The problem with that is there are a lot of people that, funny enough, don't want to do it. So you know, trying to get people to do it.
I mean, it's almost as if the current kind of government system doesn't want young people to have a voice. It's almost like they don't want young people to engage. It's almost they want to keep hold of power.
Again, I would be very pro changing the voting age, to be honest. I'm not even sure that's an official Lib Dem policy, but you know, I actually think you can do many things from the age of 16 onwards, and I think Wales have already done that, and I don't think there's a reason why you shouldn't do that. Conservatives, I believe, are trying to change the marital age to 18, I believe.
Are they?
Yes, they are. So that's quite interesting. So, you know, that will help dampen the argument for lowering the voting age, for sure.
I mean, yeah, because we actually had a debate on that, didn't we? We were joined by a youth worker from Cardiff who came and talked to us all about it, which was pretty cool. Sorry, Owen, before I interrupted, what are you going to say?
I was just going to say that the actual voting age is it's only England and Northern Ireland are the only ones that do 18. The rest of like the UK, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, they all do 16.
That's
I was going to say, sorry, Charlotte. I was going to say, also interestingly on proportional representation, the only two places in the world or in Europe that currently does that is the UK and Belarus. And
wow!
If you studied anything on Belarus, it's an interesting sense.
Yeah. I think some of my young people might have missed the stuff that happened in Belarus. We might have to save that for another
Google
chat.
It,
really.
Google it.
Yeah, I do recommend Richard, Owen, Charlotte, have a look at Belarus and see what you think about that. Ao, what's your thoughts on proportional representation?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say exactly what Jonathan just said last. That if that's the case, is it not possible constitutionally to fix term of office for politicians? So probably the highest you can run is 2 or 3 times, and then after that, a new face, a new person gets the opportunity to actually emerge. Because I think, in as much as this system has its own advantage, but I think that really it's bringing, it's causing an hindrance for new people to emerge, for office, which I think is unfair. So I'm thinking, is it possible? Is the government thinking in that direction to stipulate specific terms of office for politicians, probably 2 or 3 times? Just to create that fairness and equal opportunity and equal chance for everyone interested.
The short answer is that the government won't be thinking that way, because it won't work in their interests, unfortunately. But yeah, it's perfectly feasible. But of course, whichever party decided to include that in a manifesto has to win power in order then to implement it, and have to have a majority in the House of Commons to do it. So that's the challenge we've got,
Right, yes. So I just want to. Sorry, I just want to say the Mayor of Northampton has just joined us. Mayor, can you hear us?
Hello. Yes, I can.
Hello.
Right. So I do have to say something. What do we say? Mayor or her mayorness? Explain it to us.
No, you can say Madam Mayor. That's easier.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
It takes a little bit of getting used to.
That's fine.
Okay, for sure, can do
Your
MM.
Highness. You can do Your Highness. I don't mind.
Your Highness. Right. So Madam Mayor, you've come on to us about 10 to 5, which is great. Now, the original email I sent out was obviously for 5 o'clock, but I think Lizzie's got mixed up when my second thing sent out, and it was asked for 4 o'clock. So you've come on just at the end. So you can. This is great because you can close our chat. To be honest, I changed it for the football. You see, because I didn't think anyone would watch us. But it's great to have you on. So I mean, we're speaking to Jonathan and his responsibilities, and I've explained to everyone a little bit about the difference between the mayor being non-political and stuff. So just to kind of finish us off, could you explain what you do as mayor, what you're responsible for?
Well, let me tell you how I became mayor. You have to be a councillor, and you have to wait your term when you can become mayor. So you're the deputy mayor for 1 year, and then councillor, and the mayor the following year. And the role as a mayor is non-political, because as mayor, you can visit any board, attend any civic events and events that you're invited to, and you're supposed to be non-political because that's the role of the mayor. And it's a very exciting role because it means you can go into communities, you can work with people who've been working really hard behind the scenes in their organizations. You can go and open events, you can go to coffee mornings and chats. So it's quite fun. but you don't know what the invitation is going to be about until it hits your screen. And I've had quite a variation of events that's come up from the Bangladeshi community, which is where I'm from. I've had other community groups. I've had the armed forces, so the civic events I also attend. So it's all in keeping with the, having the mayor go and visit and making them feel proud that, the mayor belongs to Northampton and is non-political. But the most important thing is that I'm looking forward to doing in my mayoral year is working with the schools, young people, and intergeneration projects. So I'm organising with my local councillors. I'm inviting them to invite me into their ward with my chain on, and I'm going to be litter picking with them. I'm going to be also definitely, there's no shame in that. We should not feel that just because I wear a chain, I'm only confined to special events. I don't see it as that. I see the role as the mayor who can get their hands dirty and get involved in anything. Next week, I'm going to be growing some seeds, planting some flowers. So I'm really getting out there. My passion as a councillor, as a mayor, and as a human being is the environment, recycling, ensuring our communities are clean, and how can we work together to have that vision that Northampton can be the cleanest town. So let me just fill you in a little bit of a secret. I am working very closely with the Northampton bid, and I'm putting my few ideas to the table about how I can get involved as the mayor to push things along. And I think that's really important. It shouldn't be just left down to the officers in the council. We all have a hand in this. So, the role of the mayor is a very important role. And I'm so privileged to be even the very first Bangladeshi female mayor. So to me, that's really important.
I mean, I did want to touch on that actually and say how does that make you feel? But also, I mean, you said like you're going to be a mayor for the next year. So is it a limited term?
1 year.
What, just 1 year? Can you ever reapply to be the mayor again, or is that it?
I think it depends because, like this year, I am mayor. Next year is the Lib Dem councillor who's going to be the mayor, who's my deputy right now. So it changes, it circulates, but it depends who's in the succession of line. So by the time it may come back to me, it could be another 15 years. Do you see what I mean? Because you have to be in that frame. But I understand the mayor in Corby, because there's less councillors there, they've been rotating quite often. So I know Corby has a rotation system in place.
I shouldn't laugh. I just feel like it's a bit of a club. Like, you could be mayor this year.
Definitely. I'll tell you something. If it means coming back as a mayor and doing the things again, but differently, I say go for it. As long as we are working with the town and it's not just sitting back, like I said, just enjoying those few lovely trips to, go into events and activities, because I see it as more than that. And I'm very much hands-on.
I like it. I mean, I think it's really great that you're the first female Bangladeshi mayor for Northampton. I mean, that's amazing. But when you do go out litter picking with your chain on, I'm going to give you a word of advice. Just don't put the full get up on, because you might get a bit too hot. Because I've been litter picking, and do you know what? When it's really hot out there, I had to put suntan lotion all over my head several times.
Don't worry, I've actually had some mayor high vis made. Okay, the chain is going to go on top of me, so there's no danger. So because I'll have the chauffeur and the bodyguard with me, so if anyone tries to snatch the chain, they'll have to take me with them because it's actually pinned onto me. So they'll have two for the price of one.
There's something about like having a specific mayor high vis that I just really like.
Don't worry, it'll go on my mayor's Facebook page, so you're welcome to see it.
Yeah, definitely. We will all definitely have a look. Right, well, Madam Mayor, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sorry there was a miscommunication. It could have been me, to be honest, with the football.
That's okay.
But with you doing because I've been seeing some of your projects for the seeds planting and stuff like that. I think I will be pestering you in the summer holidays for a mad project idea I've got for one of our youth groups. If that's
Please
okay.
let me know. Please let me know. More than happy to attend.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
I love it. Right. So we got briefly, we're going to go round Madam Mayor. So I explained it at the end of our videos, explained to Jonathan. So what we do, we'll all go round and we'll just say something that we want to share with everyone that's been made us happy this week or made us smile or something we think is cool or whatever. So Madam Mayor, you can go first.
Thank you for the honour. Well, yesterday I made a point of going on my Facebook page and Twitter and saying to everyone, once a week, every Monday, I will put out a note about a positive note. And my positive note for this week is be kind.
Oh, I like it.
That's really nice.
I like that. I mean, because you're doing the videos of thank yous as well, aren't you?
Yes. Yes, I am.
So, I mean,
Yes.
I think that's really, really cool as well. Was it it's Thank You Sunday? I think. Sorry, I'm just remembering.
That's right. Thank You Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wicked. So maybe we should get on that, guys. Maybe I might do it with some of the youth groups. Owen, what's your positive thing that you want to talk about and share?
Yeah, mine's a little quick thing. So, like I said earlier, I like playing with Lego with little plastic bricks.
Yep.
I've only just got the last little bits done, and I've made this.
Wow!
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 That must have taken ages.
Wow!
That's my face.
That looks amazing.
Owen, that's amazing. Owen,
Bloody
you need
hell,
to.
mate.
You need to take some pictures of that and send them to me because our specialist art worker, I don't think you've met her, Leanne. She'll love that. She'll be all over that, mate. That is amazing. oh, talented young people. I love it. Jonathan, what's your happy, fun thing?
Follow that.
You should have said
Alpha
that last.
Sorry.
Yes,
Sorry.
exactly. I agree with that, Richard. I follow that. So mine's a small one and it's quite a personal one. But as you guys know, I'm away for a couple of days, and it's the first time I've been away for a long time. And I've got my 3 dogs with me, and they're quite hairy dogs. We call them the hairy children. And one of them is quite young. She's only 10 months old, and she's a lockdown puppy because we got her in that small window when we were able to go out and get stuff and get back in. So she's sort of still getting used to people because she's not met that many people other than on walks. But yesterday she met the sea for the first time, and she was a little scared as she tried to paddle a little bit, but within about 2 seconds she was in it. She didn't care. So that made me smile. That was a nice thing. I thought she's not going to be one of those dogs that likes the water, but she was straight in. That made me great. Yeah,
that just reminds me of there's a video I shared a few weeks ago of a dog so excited to see the sea. He leaps over this fence like and goes tumbling over. Charlotte, what's your happy fun thing?
My older brother, he moved into his first house this weekend, so it was nice.
That's lovely.
Congratulations to your brother. It's really difficult to get into the property ladder sort of stuff. So
that's another subject area. Yeah,
that's. I might save that for a mini free to talk TV over the summer to talk about housing.
Please do, because that's something I'm looking in for.
Well, guess what? You know what? We can just get a counsellor on, Owen, because Adam Brown deals with all that, so we can.
No, bring him back on.
Yeah, because I already poke him on social media. Adam,
can I come back as well for panel, please?
Oh yes, of course. Well, I'm actually I do want to do a panel actually at some point show over the summer because I mean another project to talk to everybody is I might start the ball rolling to start a youth parliament or youth council for Northampton.
Fantastic.
But I need to get the ideas out there first and
work out
and
all
to
the
the people
kinks
in the know, work out all the kinks. Richard, what's your happy thing? I think he's got a bit of a delay on his internet.
About to happen.
This football match is about to happen. Okay. We will move swiftly on. Ayo, what's your happy thing?
Okay. There's this assignment I've been dealing with in uni. 2,500 word assignments, and it's been a bit challenging. But eventually I was able to complete it yesterday and submit it. So I've got the rest of the week to kill.
Hey, well done.
Right.
Well done.
Ayo, did you do your little dance that we told you to?
Yes.
Ayo was meant to kind of come outside and go, yes. Like do a little dance for it for his masters. Yeah, that's good. Right, so Richard just has gone because he wants to watch the football, which is fine. But I've just got a little thing to share. I always, for those that don't know, Madam Mayor and Jonathan, I always usually share a little silly video. But this is a little video I found of Richard has come back, of quite possibly the happiest cats ever. It's just, yeah, look. I just really like it. Like, I like the cow on the left that it's like, I'm gonna get your head in my mouth. So that's my happy thing. Right, anyway, so for those that have been watching, Richard, your dad said hello earlier, but you kind of disappeared, so I didn't bring him on. But hey ho. But I'd like to thank everyone for coming on. When we end broadcast, we can all say our own little goodbyes anyway, guys. But for now, thank you for everybody that's watching and liked it. Thank you, stream, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.